I'm Nicole, and you're watching Web3 on Phoenix Crypto TV 44.6. The clip that I'm about to show you is an interview from about 6 months ago that I conducted when I was working as a freelancer for CCN, a cryptocurrency news outlet. I went to Toronto to interview Dr. Craig Wright, who is an infamous figure in cryptocurrency because he claims that he is the single person behind the Satoshi Nakamoto identity, and that's the founder of Bitcoin. Now, within cryptocurrency, it's hotly debated whether or not he is Satoshi himself, was part of the team, or even had anything to do with it. And one of the biggest reasons why the community doesn't support this claim is that most believe that Satoshi created Bitcoin pseudonymously in order to protect it from ever being centralized. If you can't find the head of the snake, then you can't cut it off, right? Well, I went to Toronto to give him a chance to explain himself, and you're about to see what happened. Thanks so much. I'm Nicole with CCN, and I'm here today with Dr. Craig Wright in Toronto at the CoinGeek Scaling Conference. Dr. Wright, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today.
You're welcome.
For your invitation to the CoinGeek Conference here in Toronto.
Again, you're welcome.
And for anyone interested in the questions and answers from my previous correspondence with Dr. Wright, I will have a link to the full text of that conversation in the description and a transcript of this discussion as well. So that being said, I do have some follow-up questions. And first, shortly after you initially agreed to talk with me at Oxford discussing your detractors and crypto media, you singled out CCN and said CCN is owned by a group of people who are backing altchains, who are backing multiple coins, who are backing unregulated and uncontrolled exchanges.
You mean like most of the exchanges, or sorry, bucket shops?
Okay. Yes, as you said in our previous correspondence, that was the term they used. So my question is...
It's not just a term, it's actually a term in law. These aren't regulated. By definition, they're bucket shops. They do wash trading, they facilitate illegal trades. In fact, I think at the moment 30% of the trade through Binance and Bitfinex actually happens to be Islamic Maghreb and also Syrian fighters and whatever else. So basically 30% of the current funding in Bitfinex is actually terrorist funding. We've been doing analysis and whatever else, and about 17% is in people smuggling. So basically what that is taking older women and forcing them into labour, and younger women and forcing them into sex slavery. And they wash the money and trade it through that. So what you're really seeing is Tether used as a means, now that Liberty Reserve has been gone and eGold has been gone, of taking those people's funds and legitimising them. So yes, they're bucket shops.
Okay, well that is...
And I notice you've got hardcore cypherpunk, but does that mean you don't want law at all?
No sir, it just means
Good.
that I support privacy enhancing technology.
So privacy requires law by definition. Anonymity is different. So what these other people want is anonymous. They don't want privacy, they don't want to be traced. Why they want not to be traced is very simple. Because you go to jail for a long time when you get women addicted to heroin so that you can make them sex slaves. And that's where a lot of this money is going. So when you're saying you support privacy, do you support people forcing sex slavery?
No, of course not.
So there's your question. So let's see, do you support the right for terrorism?
I suppose that would depend on the definition of terrorism.
So women and children, I spent some time in the Congo where there were 12-year-olds with guns. Do you support that?
No, but actually...
Do you support where people in Rwanda had their arms cut off because they weren't the right racial group?
No, of course not.
That's terrorism. Do you support funding those people?
No.
Do you support the terror groups that have come into the US for people who had nothing to do with any of this, including blowing up an Islamic mosque because they didn't agree with a hardcore radical group?
Nope, actually I'm not wanting to argue with you on the exchanges or even really discuss it. What I'd like to know is why you singled out CCN if there was a catalyst while you were at Oxford, if there was a catalyst that sort of led to that.
It's your own hit pieces. Look at what your media is. You're supporting pumping coins on wash exchanges. That enables, and it enables these people to get things like Tether out. It enables crime. None of this is about building an ecosystem. It is funded by criminals who basically want to get their money in and out. So a good percentage of this comes from Russian state. And there's a reason why the Russian state loves Ethereum and ICOs, because there's a lot of money coming out of there that is actually tainted. So let's see, articles. What article have you said about building an ecosystem? Not crypto or something like this. Real building. Real securities where people are protected. Not some guy who, like in Token 2049, sat there and said, I raised 50 million US dollars. I was able to democratize finance because I was able to get money from all these people who would never invest or be able to in a regulated system. They gave me $50 million and my project, well, there was no hope for it, but it's okay. I can sit here until I have another idea with that $50 million now. Do you know that's called fraud? That guy raised money on a promise. He actually actively sat there saying how he raised money in small amounts from pensioners, from the unemployed, from disabled people, whatever else, who weren't able to act, who weren't actually registered investors, and said he's able to steal from thousands of people because it's democratizing finance. And you guys gave him a big write-up in the past and said his wonderful idea about this huge thing he's building that never got built, never hired someone. He took all $50 million and just retired. That's what you built. Now, where is your thing about someone actually building a regulated exchange where people aren't ripped off?
So everyone from CCN is an independent journalist, and every piece is independent, unique to that person. It's not necessarily speaking to CCN's ownership or CCN as a whole.
But they allow it. It's an organization. What you're saying is, we're CCN, we don't care. It's independent. We let anything go out there, no matter how scammy and fraudy. Apart from one thing, where are the articles on the real exchanges, the ones that are regulated, the ones that make sure people don't lose their money?
Well, perhaps that's something I should look into. Would you have some suggestions for articles that I should look?
I would love to give you some real ones.
Wonderful. So I do want to move to our next question, and that is that in our email correspondence, you talked a lot about the importance of know your customer and anti-money laundering laws.
Correct.
So why didn't you build those into Bitcoin?
I did.
Okay.
This is what people are trying to remove. Bitcoin is a system where the identity is firewalled. Read the white paper. That's the section in there. The bit that Core are taking out allows all this. So right now, you've seen, if you've been through any of this yesterday in the Dev Day, Ryan talked about identity systems that can be built right on top of Bitcoin. Totally private. No one knows who you are, apart from the KYC entities, apart from the businesses, allowing you to have full traceability, but privacy at the same time. That was right there in the beginning. The nature of Bitcoin has an immutable evidence trail. You don't reuse addresses, but you still have fungibility under law. Fungibility actually means It's a legal term, and it means that you are able to trace money. Monetary tracing is actually a requirement of money. It goes right back. So money is legal and fungible when it's exchanged for valuable consideration without knowledge of fraud. To have no knowledge of fraud, you can't have an anonymous coin. You need to be able to go to the person and say, here's your coffee, here's my money. That's a valuable exchange. If someone gifts you money right now, if someone walks up that you know even and gives you $50,000 in US dollars and says it's a gift, it's not fungible. Under law, the police can walk in and say, give me that back. By law. It's always been that way.
Okay. So, can you tell us about the value proposition of Bitcoin if it cannot be used anonymously the same way that cash is? I mean, there's nothing illegal about cash currently.
The value proposition of Bitcoin is exactly the same. What we're doing in SV is the value proposition. The reason eGold was shut down was because it became an anonymous crime coin. And that goes to zero. What happens one day when they finally get confidential transactions and all the rest working, and you've already got the money laundering rules, etc. In Europe, they're clarified so that by the 20th of January next year, if you don't have all these things in place, you're a criminal. That's simple. So if you're not going to do that, it doesn't just end in a slow decline where you can get out. It ends like that. You will have no value. When those dates hit, when the first exchange is taken down, and it will be quicker than lightning, quicker than 18 months, I guarantee you this one. Within the next 18 months, the first exchange is going to go down. And when it goes down, that's BTC. It will go from whatever it is now, 8,000 or whatever US dollars, and mere possession will be a crime. Exchanges will be a crime. Ownership will be a crime. Like eGold. eGold was worth a lot of money one day. The next day, zero. Liberty Reserve, zero. It goes one day, valuable. Next day, nothing. Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a way of tracing. The value proposition is we can distribute money globally to anyone, legally, cheaper, faster, quicker. We can have micropayments. We can enable people in countries like Africa and India, people who can't get bank accounts today. Not this bull from people like Samson Mao saying people under $2 a day shouldn't have Bitcoin. They're the people who should have Bitcoin. There are billions of people right now who cannot get money, who cannot get bank accounts, who cannot register their ownership in goods, who cannot sell online, who cannot buy, sell and trade like we do here in the West and we take for granted.
The unbanked.
The unbanked. All of them who can access on not these old phones like people think, but feature phones that will be able to do this simply. Not because people sit there going, that's unsecure, because it's unsecure for large amounts of money. But people who only have a few dollars don't want to pay $4 in fees or $40 in fees. They don't want to pay a cent. If you've spent any time in Africa or India or whatever else, then what you will see is people, women, children, etc., who go into stores and buy boxes of matches so that they can sell individual matches. That's trade and commerce. But they can't do that unless they have a way of doing it. People trade right now for things like fish or whatever else in markets, and they can exchange on mobile phones, but they can't pay for it and lock it in. With Bitcoin, they can. The aspect everyone's missing, that you're forgetting, code is law, is stupid. It is the dumbest thing you ever want to do, because people matter. Bitcoin was designed with all these escrow contracts and whatever else, not to get rid of people, to integrate us, to build society. So someone like you could build a reputation as an arbitrator, and then people can come to you to sort problems. Not fixed code, not cold, impersonal computers that are set no matter what. People who you can talk to and explain problems. Things happen. What happens if you've set up a contract but something goes wrong? Do you want a way of negotiating your way out? Do you want to say, I'm sorry, I broke my leg, I couldn't make it. Please give me another day. Is that reasonable?
No, of course not. Or sorry, yes, of course it is.
My child got sick. I couldn't make it. I'm an hour late. Please, don't close my contract. Is that reasonable?
Okay. Yes, of course I do think it is. I'm sorry, I do have to move on. We have so many more questions and
Certainly.
such a small amount of time. So I do have some questions to follow up about Satoshi. So you've said that signing a message with a PGP key won't prove anything, and I can understand that. But wouldn't it be more convincing?
To whom?
To
people
naysayers?
who want the idea of code as law, yes. To people who want to say mere possession is ownership. To people who want to say Ross Ulbricht shouldn't be in jail because he didn't break the law because other people have his keys, and they do. And they can sign them proving that he doesn't have the keys, so therefore it's not him.
No, sir, I understand your argument for that. I mean, for the people who argue that you are not Satoshi,
No, what you're saying is the people who don't want me to be Satoshi because they want anonymity. You know how much funding there is to make a criminal system? You know, Mr. Maxwell used to be an anti-sec member and leader of LolSec and others. And what he's really saying, and I'm happy for you to put this on, I'm happy to go into court and libel and we'll present evidence. What Mr. Maxwell and others really want is they want ransomware and extortionware that cannot be traced. That's what anonymity is for them. They want to lock company computers and force people to pay. Right now, Bitcoin ends up in jail for a lot of hackers and criminals. When they do this, they tried it. Mr. Maxwell helped. He's got a background in this stuff. So unfortunately, he's also a weasel, and when Aaron Swartz went to jail, Mr. Maxwell managed to weasel out by coming to Canada and whatever else. But criminals like this want a system that enables them to anonymously make money, anonymously steal, corrupt, basically engage in every dirty thing society has, and there's a lot of money out there for that.
Okay, so I understand that's why you're not signing with the PGP key. You have
No, I'm not signing with the PG key, but because that's not evidence. Okay. We have this system called law and evidence.
Okay.
Evidence doesn't come because I've got a key and I possess something.
Okay, that's great.
I'm
That's
going
what
to
my next
court.
question is about.
Yeah.
So you say that evidence law has been developed over centuries to make decisions based only upon real evidence that can be authenticated and is reliable.
Yes.
So what kinds of evidence could someone provide to prove identity as Satoshi for an evidence law?
Everything I put out there. Like it or not, my entire history. That is easily discredited. So if you want to be Satoshi, you need an entire history going back to 2005 with everything that matches my life. You need to have stopped working in 2009 in January. You need to have been working on digital money before that. You need to have a foundation in law, mathematics, computer science. You need to actually not be a cypherpunk.
Okay.
You need to be able to show all of that. And here's the thing, if you can discredit one little bit, if you can show one little bit of my history that's fake, I get to wear an orange suit. If you get to go out there and say you're Satoshi, I get to put you in an orange suit.
Okay, so you say that you need to not have been a cypherpunk, and there was something that came up in our first conversation. You said that
James A. Donald was a cypherpunk, and unfortunately he twisted many of the arguments. The typical anti-government bit was where I stated how I elided James's rant, and the bit that no one seems to link is James's rant. So the elided statement means to cut short or curtly. It's my wife likes to point out that I should use words that people understand. I read too many old books, and unfortunately there's all these words that people think are misspelt that are actually real words.
Okay, so in 2016 you told Andrew O'Hagan, the author of the Satoshi Affair, that we were all using pseudonyms. That's the cypherpunk way.
I wouldn't believe everything the way Andrew wanted to make a book that painted everything in his 3 parts. So Andrew didn't sign the NDA, and Andrew didn't end up doing what he was sort of initially grabbed for, which I wouldn't have been out. He would have been following us as we produced patents and everything over the next decade. But Andrew wanted to basically he already had a story and he fitted me into it. So it's like my mother made a statement. My mother said, I dreamed big and came up with wacky ideas that were unbelievable when I was a child. Andrew put that down as Craig's mother said he lies.
Okay.
So it's basically you take something that has a grain of truth and you make it into a fiction. So.
Okay. So I'm sorry, just a question. You've said that you did not create Bitcoin as a reaction to the 2008 financial crisis.
You can't have it as a reaction to the 2008 financial crisis because it started, and I've said this before, in 2007, beginning of 2007. So it isn't a reaction. Read the Genesis Block article. It isn't a reaction to that. It is a reaction to a statement by Chancellor Darling saying, I am going to nationalize the banks unless they do what I say. He said that. He said, I will renationalize the banks if they don't do what I say.
Okay, so perhaps you did tell Andrew O'Hagan that you saw the crisis coming. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Okay. All right, so...
Andrew, we talked about a few things, and I said there were a lot of problems in the economic system at the time. Credit default swaps were problematic, especially with the inability to actually value assets, and we discussed those things. That's not the same as what he put down.
Okay. So one more question, and I know you have to go, and that is, Mike Hearn once asked Satoshi if the electronic funds transfer law would apply to Bitcoin. And Satoshi said, I'm not a lawyer and I can't possibly answer that.
So I finished my master's in law in sort of the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. Now, everyone says that means I'm a lawyer. I wasn't. It was in 2013 that I did College of Law. So I followed up and I did my training to be a barrister and solicitor years later. Now, as an academic who teaches law, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm certainly not an American lawyer or your lawyer. Now, at the time, in 2009, I was not a lawyer. You become a lawyer not by doing a law degree, but by doing practice. And it was only when I went to the College of Law and did barrister training and etc. and then I'm now what is called an academic lawyer. So I'm a member of the Society of Legal Scholars and other such things there. So when I spoke to everyone in the past, I was not a lawyer. I know that's a distinction that many people don't get. So an academic who teaches law may not be a lawyer. Unless you have done practice training, you're not a lawyer. Do you see the difference?
Yes, I do. Okay, well, I know that we have to go. I have so many more questions, but we are out of time, so thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome.
The thing about it is, it doesn't really even matter if Craig is Satoshi or not anymore. At this point, there are people who have done more during Bitcoin's development than Satoshi ever did, and we are all Satoshi. The question remains about whether BSV is a better or more functional blockchain than some others, and potentially a better or worse investment than some others. I can't claim to know those answers, but I hope that you'll take the time to investigate and decide for yourself. Thanks so much for watching Web3 TV. Stick around.